Good day, students. We have a lot to cover today, so we really should begin. And today I'm going to say you regarding, is grammar important while you speak or learn English? While you speak or learn English. One of the main reasons why so many students around the world are failing to learn a foreign language is the strong emphasis on learning grammar as a foundation to speaking. We have never studied grammar while learning our mother tongue, did we? We picked it up quite naturally and unconsciously. As a parent, I have observed the language learning process of my son. First, I have seen incoherent babbles. And next, I have observed single word utterances, naming certain things, single word utterances like calling amma, nana, etc., etc. And the third that I have observed is 2 to 3 word simple sentences. I want, I don't want, etc. And the fourth thing that I observed is making complex sentences with prepositions and morphemes, but they are not grammatically correct. They are grammatically incorrect. I go, daddy, daddy work there, etc., etc. And the fifth thing that I observed, now he is completely fledged. He is not in his prenatal state of existence. Now he is completely known. Grammatically correct simple sentences. Mom, I'm hungry. Naku akali. Amma naku akali. Consider for a moment that during this process of language development, the child is obviously unable to read and learn the vocabulary and structure simply by listening to people around him. He started learning the language. This is the tangibility. This is the truth. Children learn grammar by listening and repeating the sound patterns they hear other people say, beginning with one-word utterances, naming, and gradually moving up to small sentences. Slowly, they can make grammatically fit complex sentences. This is the truth. They also make lots and lots of mistakes while they speak. They just repeat what they hear over time. Through constant exposure and input, they correct themselves. This is true. You're supposed to expose, that's very important. It's not that you shy yourself and sit in a quiet corner. You have to practice, start speaking the language. They just repeat what they hear. This is what is language learning process. Languages are acquired in prefabricated chunks, believe me. They are acquired in prefabricated chunks, words, collocations, and expressions that we hear repeatedly. When you hear something that doesn't quite sound correct, example, they writes, he writer, you immediately detect the error. Not because you are aware of grammar, but because you are so used to the correct, habituated forms that anything doesn't sound right. Imagine hearing a song. You listen to songs, right? Just you imagine hearing songs. That you know really well. If a single note is played incorrectly, you will detect it. Even if you are not musically inclined, I'm sure. Don't you listen to songs? Every one of us listen to songs, though we are not musically inclined. While you travel in bus or train, you listen to songs. If something is played incorrectly, immediately you detect it. So what I want to say here is, grammar is also automatically learned as far as our mother tongue is concerned. Grammar is automatically learned as far as a mother tongue is concerned. But English is a foreign language. It's moreover a second language. When you see students who have been learning a language for years, you still see them, yet see them can't communicate with that language. It's safe to say that there's something seriously wrong with the approach. Yes, seriously, I want to say that they can't communicate with that language in a proper way because they're seriously wrong somewhere, wrong in their approach. Conversational fluency can never be achieved with wasteful memorization or grammatical rules. You have to take this point. Understand, conversational fluency can never be achieved if you memorize the things, if you follow a set of rules. In the beginning stage, note this, in the beginning stage, in the primary stage, we all learn language through the same series of biological, cognitive, and social processes that work exactly the same across cultures and individuals. Whether it is a foreign country or India, the process is same. Language learning process is same. We learn through same series of biological, cognitive, and social processes. Now, learning our first language as a child is a different feat entirely than setting out to learn a foreign language or father tongue as an adult. No doubt, grammar is the building block of any language and necessary for us to convey what we want to say properly. Grammar is important to that extent to speak well. Grammar is important in any language, but not when you are starting to learn. Making grammatical mistakes is very common for non-native speakers. Understand me, it's quite common for non-native speakers. Indians hesitate to speak in English because they feel speculative and indeterminate and fear that they might make grammatical mistakes. It's quite natural part of learning a language, and this is fine. But to improve our production skills, writing and speaking, learning grammar is very essential. This is true. Considering those facts, grammar is a lot more important when you're writing than when you're speaking. Understand, grammar is very important when you write something than when you speak. Grammar mistakes are a lot more noticeable in writing than in speech. Good grammar makes you easier to understand. When you're speaking, there are so many factors that influence. There are so many factors that enables communication. They include non-verbal, that means eye contact and other body language. And I have to speak something regarding prosodic. Intonation, rhythm, stress, speed, passing appropriately. And hope you know what is intonation, the rise and fall of tones. Every language has got its own intonation. I just estimate that grammar makes up about 10% of the system totally. So do not fear about grammar. In my experience, worrying too much about grammar is the number one reason many people have great difficulty actually using a language. Instead of remembering stock phrases and tweaking them to suit their needs, learners often fluff through countless rules trying to find the right one, and by the time they have done that, they'll be confused. They have missed important parts of the conversation and said absolutely nothing. Grammar should be learned in context, paying close attention to example sentences that should always be as natural as possible so you can directly use them without sounding incoherent or confused. Yeah, this is true. I always say my students, I believe the main reason so much emphasis is placed on grammar is that it's easy to teach rules and mark them, but it needs a lot of skill and imagination to teach people to communicate. It's easy to teach grammar, but it's very difficult to teach how to communicate in the language. But why is it so hard to learn a foreign language? Anyway, put simply, it's hard because it challenges both your mind, your brain has to construct new cognitive frameworks. And time, it requires sustained, consistent practice. There's more to it than that. How confusing we are. Obviously, I say that English grammar is not necessary for primary learners to speak fluently. You only need to focus on stock phrases like idioms and slangs just to communicate like a native. No need to think about the grammar rules. The words that we usually use are divided into various classes, and these classes make what is called the parts of speech, and we have to use in the right way. So to sum up, grammar is an instrumental part of a language acquisition, but it should properly combine and alternate it with pronunciation, vocabulary, and idiomatic drilling. But you should not follow this in the first stage of your learning. Having a strong grasp of English grammar will help improve your English skills overall. But do not think that you have to apply every while you speak. For example, when you have learned the grammatical rules governing sentence construction, it becomes easier for you to express your ideas. Your ideas are easy to flow. Don't define everything. Simply think about the ideas that you have to communicate. Practicing good grammar increases your credibility, authority. Think about your attitude towards a newspaper or online magazine that has errors in its articles. If you notice consistent grammatical mistakes in the articles, you start to question the legitimacy of the information they are conveying as well. Am I right? Don't we become quizzical? Don't we suspect the legitimacy of the information given in the newspaper, in the news magazine? Definitely we do. The same is true on a personal level. In fact, when you are applying for a job, the chances are high that you won't get an interview if there are errors in your resume or cover letter. Your writing represents who you are. If there are careless mistakes, then it appears to the reader that you don't care about your work. This makes them less likely to trust you and destroys your credibility. So see several times before you submit your resume or a cover letter. Over time, being able to speak and write correctly builds your confidence while speaking English. This encourages you to develop a rich vocabulary so that you have the tools to communicate with others. So in the primary stage, you need not worry about learning grammar, but speak as it is. And you are supposed to give emphasis only on idioms and phrases. You must emphasize on vocabulary. You must emphasize on the small lexical words. That will really make you possible to dwell